In this series of videos I'm attempting to repair this Hazeltine 2000 smart terminal. In the series so far I've been through the chassis, the power supply, I've carried out quite a few repairs, been through all the cards in the card rack, and at the point now where it's pretty much up and running. In the previous video I showed an issue with the serial communications, that I had to put a link on a couple of the pins before the terminal would actually receive data, and thanks for any comments that were made on that, but it wasn't an issue with the type of cable I was using. I had tried all the various configurations. If you're not familiar with serial communications, then there are a number of different cable types that can be used, from straight through cables, no modem cables, that sort of thing. But also there are some that are kind of custom cables where it's kind of a combination of various things. And one thing to bear in mind, if you use something like a no modem cable, or if you're supposed to, then even if you don't intend to use the hardware handshaking that it can provide, there are several lines on there that are used to allow the two pieces of equipment that are on the each end of the connection to effectively control the rate at which data is transferred. But even if you don't want to use that on the hardware level, the connections through the cable can still be important, because you might need to push the one piece of equipment or the other into a certain state to allow it to talk at all. But I'd been through all that. There was no issue with the cable. I'd gone through all the standard configurations, but what was happening was the terminal was never going into its ready to accept data state unless I put a link on the cable. I was initially going to put a link on the board to get around that, but then I realized that the other modes wouldn't work properly either if I did that, so I decided to investigate it further. What I found was there was I don't know if it was a wiring fault or an intentional change made to the wiring loom on this particular machine. I have two of these, so I checked the other one and it was the same. So whether they both came from the same place and a change was made intentionally, or if it was an issue made intentionally at the factory, I'm not quite sure. But two of the handshaking connections going through to the serial cable had been swapped over, and what it was doing, it was effectively whatever the handshake lines did, this was kind of doing the opposite. So it's always been forced into the I will not receive data mode, or at least not in the half duplex or full duplex modes. It was fine for the batch mode, and that might have been the intention. It might be that maybe the operators of this only wanted to use it in batch mode to make sure that the people using it couldn't access data or make any changes. Basically, you can create forms on this, but you can't really do it in batch mode. You have to do it in one of the standard modes, or you have to send the forms through from the host machine. But anyway, decided that I wanted this to be configured as a proper RS232C device. So I went through, I've modified the wiring loom, put it back into what I believe was the original configuration for this. There's a couple of wires been swapped over, so I put it back into its standard state, and we'll have a quick check in this video now and see if it now meets the proper standard and if we can communicate in all three modes. So I'll power it up. And hopefully you can see it's come up in its normal startup mode, just showing random data. So I'll clear the screen, and what I can do now, we're in the batch mode, so if I type something in, they'll come out as foreground characters. I'm just typing garbage, of course, and I can now type this in. Nothing's appearing on the terminal. I won't show the terminal because I can't really show everything on the screen at the same time, but what's on the terminal at the moment, it's just blank. This does not go directly through. We're in batch mode, so this allows us to edit whatever's on the screen. So if I want to send this, what I can do is transmit it, and we see that it goes through and transmits the data. I've got this set to 9600 baud, so it does transmit relatively quickly. So if we come up, we'll do it one more time. You can see it's put the end of transmission marker in there. I'll try it one more time, and you'll see the cursor moves very quickly through the text, and it's sent that, and that text has indeed appeared on the monitor, on the PC terminal. So that's working. We can now put it into half duplex mode, and I can now start typing in again. So if I start typing, you've seen the text appear. It appears as background text. That's the way it's supposed to appear, and that's so you can't just send it again. This is kind of live data that's being sent. It's really showing you the record of what's being sent. If I now try and send data from the PC terminal, you'll see that it should appear now on this screen. As you can see, that's working as well, and we can now put it into full duplex mode and try the same thing. So I'm typing in characters here. The remote terminal is not echoing them at the moment. I want to make it fairly clear as to exactly what's going on, but I'm typing characters, and notice, you probably hear it, but you can't see what I'm doing, but nothing's appearing on the screen here. But if I now send data from the remote terminal, you can see that they appear on the screen here. So that's working fine. That's doing exactly what it's supposed to. If we had the remote terminal set up to automatically echo the characters, then they would of course appear directly on this screen. So that's doing exactly what it's supposed to. It's working the way it should. All three modes now work the way they should do. I've got it connected through a standard null modem terminal as I did before, except that it's now working in the three modes. So the next thing I want to look at in this video is the case for this. You can see I've already restored and refitted the surround for the CRT. I haven't refitted the fan yet. There's a fan that sits on this that I need to restore. I need to change the bearings in it. It's fairly noisy. But in this video we'll have a quick look at the enclosure. I've already restored it. We'll have a look at the second machine in a bit more detail. But this machine, I just want to show you the enclosure, what I've done to it and how it looks after it's been restored. And then with the second machine, when we get around to it, I'll go through the steps I take to get it restored and into the condition that the one for this is currently. So I'll get this off the bench, we'll get the enclosure on here and see how it looks. So this is the enclosure off the unit, and I've spent quite a lot of time working on this so far. It was in fairly poor condition. It was extremely dirty, it was badly bent and scuffed, covered in dents. It was also badly twisted, so for example the flap on the front that gives access to the controls wouldn't open and close, and it's fairly crude, but it's quite a nice case, but it is fairly crudely made. But this wouldn't open and close. This whole front was twisted, the flap itself was bent, the spring that's supposed to close it, not quite sure what happened to it, but I had to make a new one. But it's come up very nicely. It's nice and clean now. I've straightened it all out, and hopefully you can see it is now in much better condition. I've also polished the front cover, so I can now refit this, and I'll do that. It's just a bit of double-sided foam that's used for this. You can see I've cleaned all the old foam off, but I'll get this refitted, and we'll see how it looks and then get it refitted to the terminal. Okay, that's the case reassembled and refitted to the terminal. As you can see, we have access to the controls through the flap, and we'll send a file to the terminal to switch on. So as you can see, it's now fully functional. It works in all the modes it should do. It works in batch mode, and what we'll do in future videos is go through and see how to create forms and how the smart features of this work. And in the next few videos though, what we'll do is go through the second of these units. I'll show you the state of the chassis and the state of the enclosure, quickly go through that. I have been going through the cards in it, so the second unit, as I've gone through this unit, I've been testing the same cards for the second unit, so been correcting faults in those as I went. I didn't show them on camera. It was much of the same sort of thing that you saw in this series, repairing this one. There's about 6 or 7 ICs on that one as well, so about the same number of failures. Different failures. I don't think there are any that were the same failure as on this one, apart from the incorrect wiring for the serial port. But other than that, this unit is now fully functional. It doesn't look very nice. I'll just move the camera around so you can see it from slightly on the side. So as you can see, it looks nice. It looks to be in fairly good condition. Hopefully I can get the second one up to the same state as this one. I've still got to do the keyboard yet. I have cleaned the keyboard for this one, but I haven't cleaned its enclosure, and I'll show that in a future video. But hopefully you found this video series so far interesting, and once we start using this, I tend to use this quite a bit. I'll be hooking it up to my PDP-11, and it's a very nice terminal. It feels nice to use, the keyboard's nice, and it's got some nice features that will make it far more flexible than a standard dumb terminal would be. And also I think it might be quite interesting looking at some of the smart features it has. If there's anything in particular you want me to cover with this, any particular features you want me to demonstrate, then please leave a comment. But from this point on, we can start making use of this, and we'll have a look at the second unit. And so as I go through the second unit, as ever, if there's anything in particular you want to see, then please leave a comment.